Alright, so started the recording, I already put something on the board. So the example is 14 plus 8 minus 9 times 6. And remember, you're using the order of operations to help you out here. But this is the one rule. You should all be writing it down. I want you to write down first. This is the thing for all of these that I want you to remember. Turn subtraction into addition of the opposite. So if you had 3 minus 9, it should be 3 plus a negative 9. So what here gets turned into something else?
I can't see.
The 9.
Yes, you can. It's right here. What?
The 9.
What about the 9?
It gets turned into a negative 9.
Yeah, so instead of that, then becomes 14 plus 8. What's after that?
Plus
Negative 9.
Plus what?
negative 9.
Plus negative 9. Yeah?
Times 6.
Yep. Times 6. Then you follow your order of operations. I'm not going to write down rule number 2 because basically after that the only thing you really need to know is do your order of operations. So, order of operations, what's next? Yeah?
So negative 9 times 6.
Multiplication, division. Negative 9 times 6 is?
50. Well, negative.
Negative 54. And now we have all additions, so that means we can do what?
Switch them around.
We can move them around whatever we want. Use a commutative property. What's the first thing that's going to be easiest for us to do right away?
19 plus 18.
Not 19, this is 14.
Oh, that's not 19. Oh, yeah, 14. Oh,
No,
yeah, 22.
Yeah, make this 22 plus a negative 54. And at that point, then you can think to yourself, hey, I'm at negative 54, I go forward 22. Hey, that's the same thing as positive 54 minus 22, except it's negative. 54 minus 22 is 32, but this is negative because the negative one is bigger.
Okay.
So, negative 32, and that was the next step of what you did. Alright, let's go negative 5 plus a number B. Someone read it off for me. It's at the top. Negative 5 plus a...
Parentheses 8 minus 12. Times negative 4.
Okay, so with this, could we do the distributive property right here?
No.
Yeah, we can't, because there's something inside parentheses. But again, the only, we want to use, when do we want to be using the distributive property?
And the end.
When we're dealing with what inside parentheses?
Plus.
I mean, if you're just doing addition, it would make it easier, but what? If it's something that you can't combine together, what things can you not combine together in there? What would be not a like term?
Divide.
We just talked about this yesterday, you guys already forgot?
Negative 4?
No.
Oh, I know. Give me a second. A number
If you
that,
haven't-
that repeats itself like
Nope.
6.
Nope.
It's choice of a number. Excuse you?
What can you, if you have an unknown number and you don't know what it is, then you can't add or subtract it with another number. What do you call an unknown number? What? A variable. So if you had x or y or z inside there, if you had any of those variables, then you would maybe use the distributive property because there's no way to simplify that without using the distributive property. But you don't have any variables inside there, so you might as well just do what?
Do subtraction.
Do subtraction. Now, in this case, is it going to help you to turn subtraction into addition of the opposite?
No.
No. Could you still do it?
Yeah.
Sure, you could definitely still do it here. This one's already protected for you, but the whole reason that you do that is because you don't want to make any mistakes with it. You're just doing 8 minus 12. You don't need to turn subtraction into addition of the opposite if that's the case. So you kind of have to know what's going to work in what different situations. If you want to err on the side of caution, then yes. And you're like, hey, I don't have any idea really what I'm doing with these things, then yes, always turn subtraction into addition of the opposite. Because then you're but in this case, the only reason you do that is if you want to use the distributive property, then I would recommend turn subtraction into addition of the opposite. But there's no variable here, so there's no real reason to use the distributive property. 8 minus 12 is
Negative 4.
-4, so you have -4 times -4 plus a -5. Then what's next?
You do
Multiply.
Which is
26.
16.
16. And I put this parentheses on here just to give you the feel for, yes, we can move it around. -5 plus 16, remember, same thing as 15 plus a -5.
11.
Plus a negative means that you can go at 16 and you can go back. So our answer is
21.
20.
It's negative 11.
no. Somebody needs some help, so we're gonna help them out here. So we're at 0 right here. Again, you can switch them around because you use the commutative property, but we'll just, go back. -5. You're going
No.
forward 16 total.
Carlos, what have you done?
16 total. We can only go forward 5 here, so we have to think to ourselves, how much do we have left? If we already went forward 5, we're going forward 16 total. We only have 11 left to go forward. That means our answer is 11. Now, maybe not everybody needs that. You might need that going forward though. So make sure you're using that. Because if you get it wrong on the assignment, we're coming back to this every time. Every time.
That's gonna be.
Use your brain.
Yes, Carlos.
Think, hey, I can move these around. This is the same thing as 16 minus 5 because you can use the commutative property.
I think Joe.
If you choose not to use the commutative property, you are going to be more likely to mess up in this situation, unless, of course, you're going to be using this.
Were you choking yourself?
I might have.
All right, next. I need number 2. Someone feed me number 2.
Oh, yes, I know.
Negative, or parentheses, negative 25 minus 5, and parentheses, divided by 6, minus 21.
Boy, this one's fun. All right, what's the first thing we do? What?
You put parentheses between
The parentheses? Okay, what about the parentheses?
You put it between the.
If I'm going to nitpick on something here, what is one thing maybe I could do before I do these parentheses? What's the one rule I told you to remember?
You can turn the 6 minus 21 to addition.
So I can turn into what?
Tiny.
You plus, and then you go negative.
Yeah, negative 21. Do I need to do that for these ones too?
Yes. No.
Why not?
Because there's no. There's no.
There's nothing further we have to do with these ones other than subtract them. Now, again, if one of them was a variable, maybe you'd want to do that because you can't actually. If one of them was a variable, you can do this problem. But if one of them was a actually no, there might be a way to do this problem. It just gets lots more complicated. It would be really fun to show you guys, I promise. But negative 25 minus 5, you already can figure that out by yourself here. It's not going to mess with you with anything. So go ahead and feel free to do that as it is. Negative 25 minus 5 is
20. Negative 20.
Carlos, what have you done?
So negative 25, we start off at negative 25. We're going backwards here. So we go back 5.
Time to die.
Negative 30, yes. So now we have negative 30 divided by 6. What's next? I'm just going to pull this over here, but if we need it back, we'll come back to it. I got your back, don't worry about it. I don't want you to make mistakes on the assignment, so anytime you need me to use that, I can do it for you. Yeah?
Do negative 30 divided by 6.
Which is?
5.
Not sure.
Negative divided by positive is?
Negative 5.
Negative 5 plus a negative 21. Now, we got negative 5 plus a negative 21.
Negative 26?
No.
What?
Negative 26.
Yes. So
Carlos.
think, hey, I start at negative 5. Plus and minus means I'm going backwards. So negative 5, go back 21.
Carlos, be quiet. You're just going to give us another number line.
Yeah, I gotta pass it.
This is another one. This is one I actually, like, I would be okay with you using the number. I mean, I'm always okay with you using the number line, but if I'm being serious here with things, this might be one, like, again, the more you get used to it, the better you'll be at where you don't need to rely on the number line. But this one to start off with, like even me, when I'm doing this in my head, I think, okay, negative 26 plus or minus, I'm going back. Okay, so that just means it's 5 plus 21, but the answer is negative. That's how I do it.
Wouldn't
But
it
if you need the number line with whatever, this is not one that I'm gonna be like, okay, come on, you should not have to use number line for that.
wouldn't it be 26 because there's two negative numbers?
Wouldn't it be?
And
Okay,
then-
so yes, it would be negative 26 if we were multiplying. Remember, two negative numbers cancel each other out when they're multiplying. And in addition, when do two negative numbers cancel each other out?
When subtract.
When they are right next to each other. So these right here, that would be them. If these were both negatives, then we would be going forward. So let's change this up. If this was negative, think you've got. I'm not doing this to make fun of you. I'm doing the actual, just show you the visual. Because hey, you're at negative 5. Subtract the negative 21. This actually means you're going forward 21. So if I were doing this myself, I would say, hey, negative 5. Let me get a new one here. Negative 5, subtracting a negative 21. Well, in my head, I would say, okay, negative 5 plus 21, because those two change each other out. If this is positive, these two do not change each other. When it's adding and subtracting, they have to be right next to each other for them to cancel each other out. I talked about that before. I'll talk about it again because it is a very common mistake. For things like this, it is very common for 7th graders to see this and be like, oh, they cancel each other out. No, it's only if they're right next to each other. So those two cancel each other out. That makes this positive, which means, okay, this is, because the commutative property, I can switch these around. It's just 21 minus 5, which would be 16. But it's not going to be positive 26. So yeah, there's that on that one. Let's go. Which one did we just do? Number 2?
Yeah.
All right, feed me number 3.
Negative 14,
Negative 14.
negative 13. Minus and parentheses.
No.
And the 13. No,
Okay, we're gonna start off at the beginning again.
negative 14 minus parentheses. Negative 3, 23. Only the number 3. Plus 2. Adding 2. And then plus 15. And then multiply by 2.
By 2? Okay, what's the first thing I do?
You don't.
Well, I see the 3 plus 3 times.
What's the first thing I do? There's one obvious thing.
You wanna do
From rule number 1.
highly, you better start guessing at the end.
From rule number 1. What's rule number 1? Turn subtraction into addition of the opposite. So putting parentheses around that. And for right here, can we turn the subtraction into addition of the opposite?
No.
There is technically a way to do it, and I'm going to explain it, but I'm not going to go too far into it because I don't want to confuse you guys too much further. But think of this as if this was adding, and then if this said like adding, you can turn this into like basically you're adding a negative, and then you subtract the negative to the two things inside it. But you only need to do that if what's inside is a,
Why?
what's the thing that you only use the distributive property for?
Joey?
Don't look at me. I can't see anything.
You can't see anything, then you can move over there. That's not an excuse. I don't ever want to hear that. No, don't talk underneath your breath to me. That's not working for me. So either stop talking and move somewhere else, or stop complaining. It's on you if you're not paying attention, not on anyone else. You would only need to use the distributive property if what's inside here, the thing that you can't add together with something else, a variable. So I would not say, hey, you need to do this. I would just say, hey, do what's inside here, because parentheses, that's what comes first. 3 plus 3 is 6. So now you have 6 times 2, and then minus 14, well, in parentheses. And if you want to turn this into plus a negative 6, you totally can then at that point. You could wait too and do it at the end, because really you've got minus 6 times 2. that's gonna be, this becomes 12 and it's negative 12. Well, same thing if you do it this way. Negative 6 times 2, negative 12, it's in parentheses right now. Think, you got negative 14 plus a negative 12. Which one wins out, plus or minus? Remember that for these, you can't just look at, is it a positive or negative number? For addition and subtraction, you have to look at what are the two symbols right by each other. Negative. So, negative 14 going back 12 makes what?
Negative 26.
Negative 26. Look at that, and no number line for you on that one. Congratulations.
I
All right.
understand.
And you're ready for your assignment, hopefully.
No.